All right. So for this episode, I wanted to talk about some of the knowledge that I gained over the course of owning my pets. So this is going to be a dog episode. I'm sure it could go for cats too. But this is just my own independent research and some things that I've done for my pups to get the longevity out of them. And I want to release this, and I want people to know straight off, I'm not a professional, I'm not a veterinarian, I've never done any of that stuff. But one of the things that I do find as a positive for what I'm talking about is the fact that my dogs have lived very long. I lost my my Corona last year in November of 2019. So she lived to be 16. Now, granted, she wasn't supposed to live to be past 3, and she made it all the way to 16. And I think had I done a few things different towards the end of her life there, I think I would have been able to possibly still have her. She ended up getting an ear infection, and it was from the lack of being able to get her groomed. I would get her groomed all the time, and right before the ear infection, I just didn't have the money to get her groomed, and she needed it, and I was putting it off financially because I couldn't afford it, and I was actually looking to get her groomed that following month, and she ended up getting an ear infection, which caused her to get vestibular syndrome, which she never really bounced back from, and 2 years later, or a year and a half later, is when she ultimately passed away. I had to put her down. She started falling apart, and I think that the vestibular syndrome had a lot to do with that. But for the most part, like I said, I kept her ticking. My other dog, Rampage, he's still alive. He's old too. I got him when I was 21, and I'm 32 now. And he's a pointer mix, and he's a pretty big dog. So for him to be 11 years old and still kicking, and he still acts really young. He lays around a lot. Granted, where we live now, he doesn't get the exercise he used to get. So that's probably chipping away at his time on this earth, because he doesn't get the ample exercise that he needs. But as far as diet and stuff are concerned, I definitely make sure I do what I need to keep him healthy. So again, these are things that I'm going to share with you that, again, don't, if your dog is in serious need of help, take it to the vet. Don't just rely on what I'm saying. These are just things that I've like I said, I've learned over the years. And the first thing I want to talk about is their kibble. If you can afford to feed your pup, if you have a puppy and you can afford to get him or her started on a raw diet, do it. It's going to be the best way, best healthy option for your dog. I've seen videos of people feeding their animals, a raw dead rabbit, stuff like that. A lot of people are worried about the bones, and the bones are not an issue. The bone marrow actually is really good for dogs. And raw bone is good for a dog. It's okay for them to chew on it. When bones become an issue is people, and if you do this, please stop. People who are barbecuing their meat, their ribs, or they're cooking chicken and they're giving their dogs the bones, thinking that it's okay for them. That's not okay. A cooked bone is not good for a dog. It ruins the integrity of the bone, and the bone can splinter, and it can actually splinter in the dog's throat. So if you're one of those people who gives your dog your rib bones after you've munched most of the meat off of it, and you just throw a rib bone at your dog and say, "Here, eat this," it's not the best for your dog. And people will argue that and say, "Well, I do it all the time," and blah, blah, blah. That's fine, but the chances of your dog getting hurt are much higher when you feed them a cooked bone versus if you were to give them just a raw animal, like a rabbit or something like that, and let them destroy it themselves. Because again, they are, descendants of wolves, so their bodies are okay with that. A raw diet is great for dogs. It's not cheap, and typically people who live in the cities don't have the means to do that. So with that being said, I can't do it either. My dogs aren't on raw diets. I wish I could get them on raw diets, but maybe if I get there financially, where I can do it, eventually I want to buy land, and if I can get to a point where I can hunt rabbits myself and give my dogs rabbits, then they'll be living the life. But for the majority of us that can't do that, our other alternative is dry kibble. Now, the thing that I learned about dry kibble, for the longest time I was giving my dogs Beneful. If you are giving your dog Beneful, stop. Just stop right now, because you are harming your dog. They were actually, Purina themselves were in a lawsuit a few years ago. I want to say it was probably about between 5 and 8 years ago, somewhere around there. They were in a lawsuit because dogs were dying from their food. And it was a long time ago when I read the articles on it, but from what I remember, there was a chemical in that dog food that is a chemical component that's also in that's also in antifreeze. Excuse me, sorry, I was losing my voice there. So yeah, just knowing that, I don't remember the name of the chemical, and I didn't do any research. I literally just hopped on to this episode. I'm freestyling it right now. But you can look into it. Look into the Purina Beneful lawsuit that took place, and I'm sure there's still articles up on the internet you can find that was based on that. And I just remember that, man. Like, my dog's fur was never both my dogs. Their fur was never really super thick and shiny and beautiful. And at one point, like my bigger dog Rampage would get he would have like allergies around his eyes. And like he would lose hair around his eyes. He had a beautiful brown and white coat when he was a puppy, and now it's starting to get it's more white, and his brown hairs turn more of a golden color as with age. But when he was younger, he had a beautiful brown coat with like distinctive white marks. He had like a little cross on his face that went down from his forehead down to at the tip of his nose, and then he had the horizontal line that went across his brow. So he had a cross on his face. But the Beneful, he started, and I didn't realize it was the Beneful at the time. I thought it was just allergies from living in Texas, or he was maybe had a mild case of mange. I wasn't sure what it was, but his eyes, he was just scratching so much that he lost all the fur around his eyes. I have pictures of when he had to wear a cone, and he hated it. I put a cone on him. I bought some cream, and we got whatever was irritating him to go away. Well, later on and as time passed, I found out that Beneful was killing dogs, and it was also causing dogs to lose a lot of their fur. And so I switched up there. That's when I started doing the research. And once I changed their diet with the different kibble, it all went away. So the brands that I've used, if in short answer, if you can pick it up at a supermarket or like a Walmart or Target, chances are it's not good dog food. All those dog foods, your Pedigrees, your Benefuls, all those main brands that you see on TV that are advertised, the majority of those are garbage. They're full of grains, and grains are not good for your dog. They're fillers. That's why you can get, these big bags for so cheap. You can get, a big, like 25-pound bag for like $30 from a Walmart or a Target or a grocery store. If you can get those dog bags at a grocery store or at one of those big chain sellers, chances are it's not going to be good for your dog. And wet food too. Like, I would stay away from all that stuff. All that stuff is garbage. It's not good for your dogs. And if you want your dog to live long, you want your dog to have a happy, healthy life, you're going to want to spend a little bit of money. Now, I've gone through different brands throughout my dog's life to find which one kind of fits him the best. Like I said, my Corona's no longer here, so now I just focus on him. And a cheaper brand that's okay is Into the Wild, or not Into I think it's called Taste of the Wild. Taste of the Wild. They have a lot of great different flavors and stuff like that. I typically get the stuff that has a lot of omega-3 in it, just for their fur and for their joints and stuff when they get a little bit older. But it's a great food. It's a lot cheaper. The only thing it does lack is it doesn't have a lot of moisture in it, which I'll tell you how to kind of get that moisture back into your dog's dry kibble. But if you're looking for something that's a little more reasonable financially, go with them. I also used to use Blue Diamond occasionally. Blue Diamond also was in a lawsuit recently over some stuff, so I have pulled away from Blue Diamond. So that's another one. I know a lot of people use that one. They're way more pricey. They're going to be a little more expensive than your Taste of the Wild. But the brand that I've been using here recently, I've been using it for about 2 years now, and my dog loves it. It's also kind of more on the cheaper end. from like Blue Diamond is a brand called Form. It's FROOM, I believe. I don't have the bag here with me, but you can find them at specialty stores. They have a lot of different brands, and they have some of the more high-end stuff. But if you're looking for something that's just a little more on the basic stuff, they do have some of those. And like, I buy my dog the I think it's chicken and applesauce brand from Form, and he loves it. It's like I said, it's on the cheaper end. It's about a 15-pound bag for about $30 or 30. Yeah, I think it's like $30. So it's about $2 a pound. He's a lot bigger of a dog, so he goes through it a lot quicker. So it does get kind of expensive. I tend to buy maybe 1 or 2 bags a month. But also, if you're going to a specialty shop, if you can find a mom and pop shop, those are even better, because a lot of times they'll have deals. One of the places that we go to, they have coupons that they release like once a month on the weekends, and you can get like 25% off your purchase or something like that. So I typically wait till those come in, and then I'll go and I can get that bag. I've gotten that bag as cheap as like $25 before. So just know that, keep a lookout for that type of stuff. But definitely kibble wise, you want to get them off of anything that has grains. A lot of these companies have also smartened up to that, and you'll start seeing like name brands start having, it's grain free and stuff. Turn the bag over, read the ingredients, like read what you're giving your dog. If you can't pronounce a lot of that shit majority of the time, if you wouldn't eat it, why the fuck would you give it to your dog? So just keep that in mind. Now, I had mentioned that you're going to lack some moisture in some of these brands. Like with the Taste of the Wild, you're going to lack some of the moisture there. So in order to get that moisture back in your dog's food, what I typically do, and this is great for older dogs too. I used to do this for my Corona when wintertime would come around. I did it for her a lot around wintertime because it helps with older dogs and their joints, but you can just do it for any dog because it helps the lining of their stomach as well. But also you're putting moisture back into the dry kibble, and that's just doing bone broth. Bone broth has become a big thing here recently with humans. You'll see it in grocery stores. You can buy bone broth, and you hear people talking about all the greatness of bone broth for humans. Well, I was doing this back about 6 years ago with my dogs. And like I said, around winter times when I tend to do it a little bit more. I haven't done it in a while. I need to do it again. But what you're basically going to do is you can go to, if you cook at home a lot and you do like whole chickens, keep the bones, and you can do it this way. If you don't have bones to work with, your next option would be go to a meat market. If you're in the Texas area, we have what's called the Calabar meat market. You can literally go to their butcher and say, hey man, do you have any bones that you're going to throw away? Like, can I buy like a pound from you of just bones? And they'll sell it to you. I got a big ass bag of bones for super cheap. I think I paid only like 50 cents for a big ass bag. Like he was going to throw them away anyway. So I was just like, hey man, just name your price. And he's like, just give me 50 cents. And, I bought those bones from him. It was a big ass bag, and bring those bones home. You get a big old kettle pot, a big tall one. I'll put a few bones in there. And like I said, if you do whole chickens, that works too. After you clean the chicken, all the meat off the chicken, save the bones and put them in a pot. Take that pot, put some water in it. And you're going to want to cook it, like just basically, stew it overnight. But you're going to also want to have a bottle of apple cider vinegar on hand. And when you put the bones in there and you put your water in there, you can fill it up about halfway. Maybe not even that high. You can just be your best judge. I typically go about a third up, or like half, just depending on how much you want to make. And then I take about a capful of apple cider vinegar, and I pour that in the pot with the water and the bones. And what that's going to do is it's going to just bring out the nutrients that are in those bones, and it's going to help that draw out the nutrients from that and the bone marrow and all that stuff. And it's just going to help seep it into the water. What you're basically doing is you're just making a broth. So you keep that on low overnight or throughout the day, and then after about 24 hours or even 12 hours of it just kind of sitting on low on the stove, you can take it out. Take the bones out, strain the water, And then take that broth water that you've created, and you can either give it to your dog warm, just in a bowl. They'll drink it. That's what I used to do with my little Corona. I used to just give her a little saucer with some of it in there, nice and warm on a winter's night when it was cold, and she'd slop that up. She loved it, and it would warm her up a little bit, but it was also great for the stomach lining, and calm their stomach. And especially with my big dog, he gets upset stomach quite frequently. So I would make that for him when he would have an upset stomach, and it would help calm and render a little bit of a satisfaction for him. So yeah, that's one thing you can do. And again, you're just also, if you're just looking to replenish some of the moisture that they may not be getting from the dry kibble, you can do it that way too. Just put a little bit in there. And like I said, you don't have to do it all the time. It's just a little treat here and there for the dogs. They love it, and like I said, it's great for the winter time for your older pups. Another thing that I do, and I still do this to this day with my bigger dog, is if you have a dog that likes to smell and lick other dogs' pee or poop, which my Rampage does. He's a nasty boy, and when we take him out to go walk, he pees and he poops, but then he also likes to just walk around and lick the ground. It's a thing that he does. It's not good because your dogs can sometimes get worms from that. And we were finding some in his stool, and I started giving him turmeric. I still do it to this day. If you give your dog turmeric, it's good for them in general. It tastes good. They like the way it tastes. But not only that, it also killed the worms that he had. So the worms that he was having, they were coming out in his poop, and they were like moving or wiggling around and stuff. I started giving him turmeric, and it killed them. And they went away within a few days. I started putting some turmeric on his dry food, mixing it, and then feeding it to him. And like I said, within a couple days, we would find the worms in his stool, and they were dead. And then we kept an eye on it, and within that week, they were gone. So that's just a little hint as well. Turmeric's really good for your dogs. They like it. Don't go overboard with it. You don't want to give them too much, but just, sprinkle a little bit on their food, mix it in, and feed it to them. They'll love you for it. Another thing that I did was my Corona used to have seizures. She had Parkinson's and epilepsy, so she was susceptible to having seizures. And so she would have typically about one a month. She wasn't having them frequently enough to put her on medication, and even then she was a laid back dog, and the vet told me at the time when I had took her in that if I was to put her on the medication, she would become even more lethargic, and so she basically would have became a vegetable. So I was like, no, I don't want to put her through that. But as she got older, the seizures really kind of took a toll on her. When she was younger, she'd have a seizure, I'd hold her, she'd come back, and she just kind of look around confused, like what the hell just happened. But as she got older, this is a dog that never yelped or whined in pain. She was a tough dog. I don't even know if she could feel pain really, because she wasn't all there. But like I have stepped on her before, and she just kind of like looks at you like, and she'll blow her nose and walk off, and like she had attitude. So when she got older, she tended to have, like when she'd have seizures, she would whine, and it hurt me to the core. I can still hear her little whine when she was having the seizures. So I knew that it was painful, and I felt helpless. I didn't know what to do, and I wanted to try to alleviate as much as possible without having to put her on meds, because like I said, the meds just weren't that great of an idea, and the vet even told me like there's really no point, because she wasn't having them as frequent as most dogs. Once a month is not considered a lot. So I did some research, and I found out that they were doing a study on coconut oil for small children that were having seizures, and they had some positive results. And so I said, you know what, if it can work on kids, why wouldn't it work on dogs? And I had known friends who were using coconut oil on their dog's fur to make it thicker and more shiny and everything like that. And by the way, also before I go any further, I kind of went away from that. But when you if you change your dog's kibble, keep an eye on their fur. I guarantee you it's going to come back thicker, and it's going to come back softer. But I digress. With the coconut oil, I decided, you know what, I'm going to try it. Let's see what happens. So I went to the store, and I got my dog a chicken breast, and I didn't want to feed her a raw chicken breast because she's never really had raw food. So what I would do is I didn't want to put any seasoning on it either, because seasoning's not really, that's for us, not for dogs. So I would cook just a plain chicken, but I got coconut oil. And so I'd take a coconut oil and I just take a spoonful of coconut oil and I'd put it in the pan, let that, melt down into a liquid. And I literally would just kind of base that on the chicken. I'd cut the chicken up in little pieces and I'd cook the chicken in just that coconut oil and let the chicken kind of soak it up. And then I'd feed it to my dog. And I know some of y'all may not believe this, but I did it once a week for a whole month. So I gave her chicken breast with coconut oil 4 times a month, once a week. And then I stopped because she didn't have a seizure that month. And experiment wise, I wanted to see how long can this kid go without having a seizure. So again, I only did it 4 times within the month. My dog went 1.5 years without an incident. 1.5 years with no seizure. And then when she did have a seizure, I was like, oh, back to doing it again. So again, do I know for a fact that that's what kept her from having a seizure? No. But if you have a dog that has seizures, it's worth a try. If they're a little more frequent, I don't know if it's going to help. I don't know. Again, not a doctor. I just know from my experience, coconut oil and chicken breasts given to my dog once a week for 4 weeks suppressed her seizures long enough to where she didn't have one for 1.5 years. Again, don't know if that was what kept her from having them, but hey, if you have a dog that has a seizure, you don't know what to do, it's worth a shot. That's what I did, and it worked. Another thing, if your dog has, if you have a puppy and it ends up getting parvo, this happened to my pup. My buddy who I got the dog from, his dog, which was my dog's brother, had parvo, and we didn't know. And when my dog was playing with him, he got parvo. Well, my buddy went and paid an arm and a leg to save his dog. And I went the cheap route because I couldn't afford it. And I kind of just did my research on parvo. It's not so much the disease itself that kills the dog, it's the symptoms. Your dog tends to get dehydrated and will die of dehydration. They throw up, they're vomiting all the time, they have diarrhea, and then they don't want to eat, so they tend to die from dehydration. So to combat that, if you don't have the money to take your dog to the vet, you could always just use Pedialyte. Now, again, I'm not a doctor, but I saved my dog's life, and I saved one of my ex-girlfriend's dogs. She had a pit bull who had parvo. I told her to do this, and her dog survived. So again, not a doctor, but if you're willing to try this option because you can't financially afford to take your dog to the vet to get it done that way, it's something that you could look into. You're going to buy a bottle of Pedialyte, buy about 4 or 5. You're going to want to buy a good amount. And literally every hour, just get yourself a syringe and just force feed your dog and just keep him hydrated. That's what I did with Rampage. Every hour on the hour, I had a syringe and I was going through about a bottle a day, maybe a bottle and a half. But just every hour, just keep giving him Pedialyte, and he may throw it up. And if he throws it up, give him a little bit more. But the point is to just keep your dog hydrated. If you keep your dog hydrated and you weather the storm with him, he'll be okay. That's one of the main things I did. And like I said, I did that with my dog. I force fed him, and then one of my ex-girlfriends, I hadn't talked to her in fucking years, and she called me out of nowhere and was like, hey man, I think my pup has parvo, what do I do, blah blah blah. I was like, I'll be over there in a minute. She's like, well, what do I need? And I just told her, I was like, just buy some Pedialyte, buy a open mouth syringe, and just force feed your dog Pedialyte every hour, and give him a full syringe of Pedialyte, and just keep doing that, and weather the storm with him. And sure enough, her dog survived. So again, it's not a cure-all, but it is just something that I have done and I have experience with. So give it a try. And that's really all I have. Love your pets and take care of them. Like I said, take them to the doctor, get them their shots. If you have a dog that's also older, and this is information that I got from a vet, you tend to get 2 kinds of vets. You're going to get vets who actually care about dogs, and they're going to be real doctors, and they're going to share information with you, and be as beneficial and informative as possible. And then you're going to run into vets who don't give a fuck about you, don't give a fuck about your animal. All they want is your money. So they're going to try to sell you on everything. Those people you typically will find at the big stores, when you'll get bum rushed by them at the like PetSmarts and Petcos and stuff when they're giving free or they're giving out shots and stuff. And I've run into those people too. So one of the things that I've learned is if you have an older dog who's typically inside, and they're still trying to push like rabies shots on you and stuff like that, like if they're trying to push certain things on you, there's certain shots. Again, do your own homework. There's certain shots that you don't need. Like my Rampage, he had rabies shots his entire life. You get the first year when they're puppies, and you got to go back and get another one, and then you start getting, I think it's the shot's good for like every 3 years. But if your dog's a mostly inside dog, at a certain age, you can stop getting those. The vaccine has worked its course on your dog. Your dog will be fine. And again, take everything I said with a grain of salt. Do your own research and stay vigilant. Because again, I've learned over in life, you can't trust corporations and companies. They don't give a shit. As much as they say they do, they don't. It's just a selling tactic and a tool to keep you buying their product. So do your research. But if you take anything from this, I do, appreciate you listening. And if any of this helped, awesome. That was kind of the goal of this episode. But if your dog is in serious need of medical attention, please, by all means, take him to an emergency room. There's no need to try to cheap out when your dog is in dire trouble. And again, that's coming from me. Try to stay away from emergency rooms, though. I will say that when my Corona got vestibular syndrome, I already knew what she had before I went into the damn doctor. I was able to diagnose her myself. And when I took her in, I told the doctor that's what I thought it was. And of course, he ran blood work just to make sure. And it's exactly what it was. That's what she had. But stay away from emergency rooms. If your dog can last throughout the night, and you don't think your dog is going to die overnight, then please wait till the morning and take them into a legit vet. Emergency rooms will take you for everything. They charge an ass load, and I learned the hard way with that. So just keep that in mind. And a lot of times those overnight places, the nurses and doctors don't really give two shits. They don't want to be there because it's overnight. But yeah, just also, I hope some of this was informative. Like I said, I was just kind of going off the cuff. I may have missed a few things that I wanted to talk about because I didn't have anything written down. It was just an idea that popped in my head when I was looking at my pup. Also, I'm just, there's a lot going on. There's anniversaries and stuff coming up with my dog's death. So dog stuff is on my mind right now. And again, I don't know when this episode's going to air. So when this episode airs, we probably have already passed the anniversary of my dog's passing. So, but yeah, right now it's fresh in my mind. So I figured I'd share some of the info that I've learned throughout the years, and hopefully it was informative, and hopefully you were able to take something away from it. If not, that's cool too. If anything, I appreciate you listening, and you guys have a great weekend, and until next time.